This is the instructional video for the beginning of the Type Fundamentals book project. And in this video, I'll explain how to set up the file in InDesign. I'll give you some tips on how to get started and how to work through this project. So here I am in InDesign. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. So I'm going to go File, New. I'm going to create a document. And then in here, I need to enter some certain settings. So the book needs to be 8.5 by 8.5. So I'm going to type in 8.5 IN. And then 8.5 IN. We're going to need quite a few pages for this book. So I'm going to go ahead and enter 50 just so we have enough, because we can really easily delete them at the end. I don't want facing pages for this project, so I'm not going to select this. Then we also want to put some custom margins in. This will really help us see the boundary of where we need to be working. So we're supposed to have a frame on here that is 7 by 7 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and make that the margin. So if we subtract 8.5 from 7, we get 1.5. So that tells us that the margin should be 3/4 of an inch on all 4 sides. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that here. So once we have all that entered, we can go ahead and click Create, and InDesign will crank through and make this document for us. So here we are. We have the document. It's all ready to go. If we click on the Pages palette, we can see all the pages are preloaded for us. So one of the first things we want to do is go ahead and save the file. So I'm going to come up here and go to File, Save. And I'm going to use the naming convention. Then we want to go ahead and get the frame into this document. So the most efficient way to get the frame in here will be to put it on the master page. So that's up here at the top, and the master is a place where we can put things that will end up appearing on all of the other pages in the document. So anything that's here will appear on every single page. So all we really want here is the frame, since the frame is the one thing that will be consistent. So I'm going to go ahead and take the rectangle tool, and since the margins were set to the size of the frame, I can actually just go ahead and draw it across, and it'll be correct. But just for good measure, we could also double click with the rectangle tool and then type in 7IN, 7IN, and it'll give us a perfect frame here for us. And then we could always use the align features to actually align it to the page. So those exist under Object and Layout. So align, if you come down here, you can change what it aligns to. So we could say page, and then we could center it on the page. So there's a couple ways there just in case you are getting confused on how to exactly do that. But the last thing we need to do is actually make the frame appear. So I need to come in here and add color to this frame. So if I double click, I can then drag this down and create actual black, which is what we need for the frame itself. You could also come up here and you could select it right through this function by just clicking black. And we need a 1-point frame. So that is correct. And now if we come back to these pages, you'll see that that frame is on all of these pages for us. So now that we have the frame on the master page, it will also help because we can't mess with it. You're not able to touch it any longer. So that's going to make it more useful as we're working through this. And then really the steps are to start translating your sketches into the computer. So you should have used the sketch template, posted those, and then gotten feedback on which ones to pursue. So now you're coming in here to pursue those options and turn them into digital compositions. So one of the other things I want to cover in this setup video is that you also need to use the font Helvetica on this assignment. So we want to go ahead and potentially load that into the computer. So if you don't already have it preloaded, so when you draw a text box, if you're not seeing it up here in the menu, we'll need to go ahead and install that so that you can actually see the typeface for you to select it. So to do that, you want to bring the typeface up in your OS. And then on a Macintosh, you can just go ahead and select and click all of these, and they'll open in Font Book. They may open with multiple windows, or they may open all in one, either way. And then you'll click Install. I'm not going to click Install because I already have this typeface installed. So we're going to see an error message here, which is happening right now. But it should not happen on your computer if it's not installed. And then you'll see that pop up, and that means that you can now use the font. Sometimes you might need to restart InDesign, so that might be another step that you need to go through. But once you have that installed, you'll be able to use that typeface. And remember that you're really restricted to only using certain weights and styles of this typeface in certain sections. So be sure to adhere to that very, very strictly. So once you have the typefaces installed and everything's ready to go, we can go ahead and start flowing in the text. So that'll happen as we've done before. We're going to draw text boxes. I'll do it again just to show it. So we'll again and draw that text box. Remember, we want as few as possible, but you may need to use a combination of them, especially if you're playing with different alignments. Then I'm going to go ahead and paste the text in. So you can copy and paste it out of the assignment sheet, or you can type it yourself. Just make sure that you're fixing any of the errors. One of the first things I'm going to do is go ahead and turn on the hidden characters, because that's going to show me where any line breaks are. I want to make sure that the line breaks are where they should be, because I have some that are not quite right. And I want to fix that before I keep going. So you can always reference the assignment sheet to see exactly where the line breaks are supposed to be and how the text is supposed to look. So now I'm going to go ahead and change this to Helvetica. So for the very first section, we're only allowed to use Helvetica Roman. It may also be referred to as a book weight, but it should be Roman. And we're only allowed to use 10 point. So I'm going to go ahead and change the typeface to 10 point. So then really the interest here is going to come from changing the alignment, changing the leading, changing the spacing. Again, you're more than welcome to split this text up into multiple text blocks. If that's what you want to do, you can always draw another one and then copy and paste that text out into another text box. So again, playing with alignment, leading, spacing, placement, that's really how we're going to create some interest with this project. And follow your sketches as closely as you can, although sometimes they may not translate exactly. And as I've talked about before, you can always turn on W. That'll help you see what the composition looks like. And the spacebar tool can be useful to move around the document with your mouse. So then once you get to section 2, you're welcome to start using bold and italic. So you can take these things and then you can start using the bold weights. And then you can use oblique weights as well. So that's what opens up on that section. Then when you get to the scale section, you can actually start increasing these in size. So remember, you want some that have scale and some that have extreme scale. So some of these might be regular scale. And then we want some that are more extreme, where we see this, very, very large typography. So those are some of the things that you can play with. Remember, all of that can be done through the character palette or right up here. Then when you get to axis, you can actually start rotating these things. So that's how we would rotate the text. You'll get down here into the corner and you're able to rotate these pieces of information. It can also be useful to note that up here, if you look at the top of the toolbar, that number that's moving, if you look right here, it'll actually tell you the angle. And that can be useful because sometimes you're going to want to put things on the same angle. So like this is a 30.5, I may want to put this on a 30.5 as well. The other thing that can be handy is if you hold down the shift key, it'll restrict where it can move, which can get you to some nice angles that are complementary and potentially ones that work together. Then we move into the section with graphic elements and photography. So that's going to be an interesting process. You'll need to collect some photos that relate to this exhibition. So pick things that are appropriate, things that are relatable, but feel free to look for things that you're interested in. You can even find photos of this exact exhibition if you want to. So the best way to really do this is to go to Google Images and type in whatever you're interested in looking for. So here I'm just going to type in Joseph Albers just as an example, and I'm going to go to Images because we need high-res images. So if you come to this Tools setting, you can actually spec the size of the image. So large will be more than fine. You may be able to get away with some of the medium images, but it's important that you select images that are higher resolution. So then we'll go in, and when you find the image that you want, we can select it. And then we can go ahead and download this image. You'll want to note where you took the image from. That's an important thing. You can also search here with usage rights for ones that are labeled for reuse. That can be a handy way to find images that you are allowed to actually use without copyright. But we can credit these as we're laying them out, so that'll be okay too. Then we can go in and find that image and drag it into InDesign. So I'm going to go ahead and use this image. And I'm going to click on the image, I want to view image, and when it loads, I'm able to actually click and save the image. So I'm going to go ahead and save it to my desktop just for now. You may want to give it a name so you can find it again. Some of these online files can be named funny. Then we'll go back to InDesign, and I'm going to go ahead and just place the file. So Command D. There it is. And that'll allow me to place it in my document. So then if I hold down Shift, Option, and Command, this will be a useful thing to know because that's going to help you make the image bigger. If you just click and drag the edges of the image, you'll notice that you're not able to make them larger. And that's really because InDesign works on a frame within a frame concept. So there's an outer frame that allows you to crop the image. So if you want to crop the image, that's how you're going to do that. But then there's also an inner content, which you can access by clicking on the direct selection tool. And you'll notice that that then allows you to move the content within the frame. And you can also blow up the content within the frame. So that's something that you'll want to explore. And if you're having trouble getting the image to be seen, that can be a useful way to figure out what's going on. Another thing that's useful is you can always just use these toggles up here too. So you can change the percentages up here at the top, and that'll make the image bigger, both the frame itself and the content inside of it. Be careful that this chain is clicked though. If it's unclicked, it'll allow you to stretch the image, and that's something we really want to avoid on this assignment. So once you have the images where you want, be sure that you're always cropping them to the edge of the frame so that they're not seen. You may also want to duplicate the frame and copy it on top so that we always have it on the edge, because anything on the master is always going to appear below all of the other content. So I'm going to copy this out in this situation, and I'm going to paste in place, which will put another one on top. The other thing that we're going to deal with in this section is graphic elements. So most of those are going to live over here. There's lines that you can create, so you can draw those with the line tool. If you hold shift, it will restrict where it draws it. Then you can turn on the color, and you can actually turn up the actual stroke. There's also different kinds of lines in here that you can find that you can explore and use. Don't go too crazy, but they're available to you. Then there's all of these shapes. If you click and hold, there's the rectangle, the ellipse, and the polygon. So those are ways to create other things. If you hold down shift when you're using any of these tools, it will create a perfect square or a perfect circle. So it will not allow the shape to be stretched. If you double click with the polygon tool, it'll actually bring up and allow you to set the number of sides. So if you're particularly looking to make, a triangle, you may want to explore using that feature. And then again, you can always change the color when you make them down here. So this is always the fill. If you double click, you can change it. And then the stroke here as well. So that's how you're going to basically make most of the graphic elements that you'll use. And again, you can use any combination of them. If you're familiar with the pen tool, you could always explore drawing things like that. There's also glyphs inside of the typefaces that you're welcome to use. So I showed that in one of the previous instructional videos, but you're welcome to go back into the glyph palette and do things like that. So the last thing I want to show is that you may also want to be packaging your file. So InDesign has a special feature that allows you to package files. So if you go to File, Package, what this is going to do is it is going to save a copy of this file in a folder, and with it, it's going to bring all of the images and all of the typefaces that are needed. So if you're maybe not always working on your own computer constantly, you may need to be doing this. If you're taking work to and from another computer or to our computer lab, you'll want to have all of the files with you, because when you get to that new computer, you'll need to reinstall all of those fonts, and you'll also need to have all of the image files with the InDesign file so that they can link back and show you that image. If you ever go wrong, you can always re-download the file, and that's possible too, but this will always make things easier. So you can go through this process, you'll see the fonts that it's going to bring with this file. Here's the linked images, and then when I click package, it'll create a folder. So that's something that you'll want to look at and potentially use. Another thing that's helpful is this links palette can always show you. So here I have the image that's linked, and if there was a red stop sign here, that would tell me that it's not linked. So if you ever need to relink an image, you can click on this and click the downward menu, and then relink and select and find wherever the image is saved so that it can get linked back. So hopefully that'll help you get through all of the work and setup on the Type Fundamentals book. As always, you can email your instructor if you have any questions. We're here to help, and good luck.